That Was Yesterday podcast is brought to you by Define Mind and Body Wellness, my wellness center here in Glastonbury, Connecticut, where we specialize in holistic services to help shortcut the process so that you can see results fast, but learn to do it in a habitual way. So many of the topics we talk about are part of the program that our clients receive, except they get much more in-depth detail. Also, my workbook of the 10-week program to lose and never look back, which is only available to our patients at Define. If you are interested in holistic body fat spot reduction, or our pod to increase your metabolism, or our cold plunge, or our sauna, which is the best sauna in the world, and that I promise you, I know that sounds biased, but you'll see for yourself. Please go to definewellnesscenter.com. You will be prompted to put your information in and make sure to mention podcast when you do, as you will be eligible for a bigger discount on our introductory services because you are a listener. Appreciate you. Have a great day and enjoy today's podcast. Welcome back to another episode of That Was Yesterday podcast. I am your host, Joe Carabase, and today we are picking back up on our series for women to lose weight, how to lose weight, tips to lose weight, what you need to know, what you don't need to know, things that work, things that don't work. And today we are talking about two very important topics: sarcopenia, which is something that I think every woman should know about, but unfortunately most do not. And we're also talking about weights versus cardio. Where should you start? If you're someone who is short on time, who knows they need to exercise, but wants to make sure they're doing what is best for them in their goals, where should you start? When should you start weights? And what should you do if you're a beginner? If you're someone who has a lot of weight to lose, should you exercise? Is it the right time for you to exercise, or when should you start? We're going to address all of these questions and much more. Let's dive right in. All right. Next topic is sarcopenia. I mentioned this a little bit, but sarcopenia is the one thing I think a lot of women need to know that don't get enough information on. The reason being is because sarcopenia is a natural degeneration of muscle tissue over time. It accelerates with age, meaning you lose muscle more rapidly as you age. Why is this problematic? Well, 1 pound of muscle burns 50 calories at rest. Muscle is metabolically active. So the more muscle you lose, slower it's going to be on your metabolism. And what can happen with a lot of these low-calorie diets is you're going to lose muscle first because your muscle is not getting enough nutrients. Because muscle is metabolically active, it requires nutrients. It's costly of your body. So if you're not giving it that, you're going to lose it. And especially, I see this a lot too, with women who are working out really hard, who are not having enough protein, who are under consuming calories. They're kind of getting it at both ends in terms of their breaking down muscle when they're working out, which is a good thing, but they're not replenishing that with enough protein. Then they're getting the impact of sarcopenia on their body, so they're losing muscle in that way as well. So it's kind of like a double whammy. What ends up happening is people are gaining fat, and they're like, how am I gaining fat? Well, that's one reason why. So sarcopenia is something you really need to be aware of. What can we do against that? We've mentioned it. Increase your protein intake. We mentioned 1 gram per pound of ideal body weight of protein per day. Ideal body weight of protein within 20 pounds. The next thing is resistance training. Resistance training does not have to mean, on a bench doing 350 pounds, right? That doesn't mean that. It doesn't have to mean on the floor doing a push-up, but it could mean doing a push-up on the wall. Could mean doing a push-up on your knees. Could mean using weights for any exercise. Now, bigger muscle group type exercises are always going to be better. Exercise that focus on your chest and your back and your shoulders, as opposed to your biceps or your triceps. But building muscle needs to be a part of the plan, one way or another. You don't have to do a lot. Look, if you've never worked out your entire life, I am so excited for you because you have such growth ahead of you. Like, your life will literally be easier after at least 30 days of lifting weights. Without question. Part of what makes movement and why we deal with pain as we age is when you're not exercising and you're losing muscle, that's really taxing on your body. So the more muscle you have, the more cushion you'll have, but also the more easily you'll be able to do certain things instead of putting more strain and stress on your joints and on your ligaments and on your body, which unfortunately can happen as a byproduct of being overweight. So resistance training, muscle weighs more than fat. You got to be aware of that. So another reason why we don't want to look at weight. However, I would just encourage you to start adding some resistance into your life and stay away from the 2 pound weights. All right. And now, if that's hard for you and challenging for you for the duration of the exercises, then use it. But at some point soon, it will no longer be challenging. And what happens too much, and this is, I think, a byproduct of the aerobic era, is just especially women using like ultralight weights. Not efficient way to build muscle at all. To build muscle, you use resistance that is challenging for the duration of which you are doing that set. In other words, if you have a 10 rep or a 30-second set, then you should be able to barely do the reps you need to for that duration while keeping good form. The second your form starts to fumble, you got to go down the weight. Or if you get to the very end and it was just super easy, it's too light of weight. So again, there's a lot of gray area because in order for you to be healthy long-term, you have to learn what's best for you ultimately. That's how it is. My suggestion would be making sure that when you're working out, you are using a weight that is challenging, that you can do with good form. And every single exercise, every single workout, try to do a little bit more, whether it's 1 more rep or 2.5 more pounds than you did last time. If you do this every single time you work out, and even if you work out once a week or twice a week, you will notice significant difference over time. Cardio versus weights. It's another topic that comes up a lot in this discussion. So should you be doing more cardio? Should you be doing more weights? Here's what I would say. If you are someone who is not exercising at all right now, I would say start with walking. It's a lower hanging fruit. Not to say exercise or weight training in particular is out of your reach or out of your realm or something you can't do. You 100% absolutely can do it. Trust me. We used to have a rule at my gyms. You could never, some people used to call all the time, can I just come watch a workout? No, you can't. And you want to know why? Because when you would watch it, your insecurities would get out of your head and they would take over your mind. And so they would make you think, I can't do this. I can't do that. You would find somebody in the workout floor who's been working out for way longer than you. And you would draw this comparison as if it was an apples to apples comparison, although it's actually an apples to bananas comparison. They're different pieces of fruit because one person's been doing that for a long period of time and you haven't. So why would you compare them? But that's not how the brain works. The brain is very emotional, not logical, just like weight loss, right? So I can guarantee you, I don't care. And I could say that with confidence because we've literally had, I had 5 gyms. We had thousands of people enter those doors of all levels. There was never a point of someone walked in and couldn't do something. Because you know why? Every exercise is a regression, there's a modification. I don't care what it is. And I don't care what you got going on. If you're someone who can't stand up for long periods of time, you're currently immobile, you have fibromyalgia, you have multiple sclerosis, that's okay. All right. I'm not saying it's easy. I'm not saying that's not going to make things harder. But what I am saying, there are things you can do. And again, I know that because I've seen it countless times. So you can exercise even though you're not currently exercising. I'm thinking more about pragmatic, long-term approach. If you're not currently exercising, start with walking because it is the low-hanging fruit. And so if you can barely walk up and down the stairs, that might be a good place to start. And start small. You know, if you're only walking up and down the stairs to function in everyday life, well, maybe you say, you know what, I'm just going to walk up and down intentionally 5 times a day, right? Or if you're someone who walks to the end of your street and you get tired from that, that's okay. So walk to the end of your street and then walk 10 feet further and then walk back. As that becomes easy, walk another 10 feet forward. You know, a great thing to do when you're walking is to pinpoint something in what I used to always do with running was like, I see all right, I'm going to sprint to that stop sign. All right, I'm going to sprint to that headlight. I'm going to sprint to that car, whatever. Give yourself something that as you're working towards it, you see that distance shorten. Very, very powerful. It's powerful to have an endpoint of what you're doing because you know it's going to be gone soon. You know you can do it, right? With my exercise videos on my YouTube channel, YouTube.com/Joe Carabase, there's a ton of workouts on there, by the way. But I started incorporating the time bar. And that's not just to make it look cool. It's because it's proven that when you're working out and you know how much longer you have, you'll be more likely to finish versus like your mind starts to, again, get emotional and insecurity starts to come out and self-sabotage starts to come out and you start to think, when is this going to be over? I can't do this anymore, blah, 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 blah. But if you can just get through the next set, then you can do the set after. And if you can just get to that stop sign, then you can do this. They can do a little bit more after, most likely, almost every time. So when you are walking outside, just keep going a little bit further than you've done before. and know that any little bit is going to matter. Now, look, when it comes to walking, it's not going to move the needle significantly overnight, but over time, it will make a massive difference. And those of you guys who are walking right now, who are like, I'm walking and I'm not seeing any result, well, I would encourage you to keep walking, because I can guarantee you, if you did not walk, or if you weren't as active, say, as a nurse as you are now, even though you're not seeing anything on a scale, you would notice a difference if you stopped doing all that activity. I can guarantee you that. So it is helping, but this is, again, why at Define we help shortcut the process through our laser spot reduction treatments, as well as our pod to increase your metabolism, because it is so hard. But whenever you're doing our spot reduction treatment or our pod, it's going to make whatever else you're doing matter significantly more. In other words, it's like pouring gasoline on the fire. And it's what we've seen with all of our patients. But the point is that activity is important, right? And the initial question is cardio versus weight training. So if you're someone who has never, or not, shouldn't say never, but if you're not currently working out, start with walking. And once you start to walk regularly, then once you're starting to make some nutritional changes, right? And once you're starting to see some changes over time you're making with nutrition, like you're doing it week to week, then incorporate a workout in. Just don't put too much on your plate to start. But ultimately, if you're someone who has been eating clean for a while, you're someone who does get your steps in, and you're someone who is really looking to maximize, then you want to make sure you start to dial up your workouts. It doesn't have to be every day, and longer is not better. Shorter duration is going to be better, especially you got to factor in recovery. If you work out super hard, you get a lot of stress in your life, your body's not going to be recovering from those workouts, especially as we age. So less is more when it comes to resistance training, when it comes to workouts in general. And the best way to work out to kind of get cardio and weight training is what's called metabolic conditioning, where you're working out in a way where your heart rate's elevated, but you are also burning calories from resistance training. So you're doing weights and you're keeping your work to rest ratio shorter so that your heart rate's elevated. And then your body after the workout has to recover longer, which means you're burning more calories after the workout. That's the most efficient way to train. But having some level of strength training, I would say, is imperative for any woman who is over 40, but especially over 50 and beyond. And I don't care if you're 70 or 80 or even 90. The reality of the situation is exercise is a very important part of the equation. And oftentimes when it comes to weight loss, it's like an afterthought. It shouldn't be. And maybe it's not something you start with, but it is something, there are levels of which you can, start inching towards. But the idea is to continually progress. I cannot tell you how many people I've worked with who never worked out their entire life, who had said something to the extent of this: I can't believe it took me this long to start. Honestly, if I had $1 for every time I've heard that, I would have an additional $2,500. In this day and age, ain't going to do a whole lot, but it would be nice to have. Like, that is a real thing. And just like what I said about people watching a workout before they actually do the workout, is that so much of this stuff is in our head. You're going to be uncomfortable when you start something new. You're not going to feel coordinated if you've never worked out before. But if you just focus and start with a beginner program, and you focus on learning the form, and then once you learn the form, increase your resistance. And then as you increase your resistance with good form, you start to incorporate maybe a metabolic conditioning element to it, where the rests are really short, or you're supersetting exercise, you're keeping your heart rate up. You'll just continue to progress and progress and progress. Thanks for tuning in to That Was Yesterday with me, Joe Carabase. And remember, every step forward is progress. We'll catch you next time. And in the meantime, if you found any value from this episode, please share with friends and go ahead and give us a 5-star review. I appreciate you. Talk to you soon.